Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's G. What is going on, everybody? How are you? Where you live? Where do you live? Let me know below. And if you feel like it, stick around for a while. We're going to talk about the new moon that's coming up. December, we have a new moon. Now, the new moon in December, there's a few things I want to go over before we get into the chart. We are going to look at a chart. The things I want to talk about quickly. New moons, why are they important? And then we'll give the dates, the degrees, the sign that the new moon is in, because it's the sign that it's in that gives us the meanings. Like, what does it have to do with in my life? Right? What kind of people, what area of my life will it affect? Right? And so we're going to go through all those little nuggets. And then when we see the degrees, if you have your chart, you can see if you have something near the new moon. So we always give an orb of 2 degrees for new moons and full moons, a 2 degrees before and a 2 degrees after. That's what the orb is, the space, 2 degrees, space, 2 degrees before, 2 degrees after. And normally, if you do, because the moon cycles are so potent, so powerful, things happen. And a new moon normally represents some sort of a new beginning. Something new is beginning. All right. Opposite of the full moon cycle. The full moon cycle is something has just ended. I've just completed something. And typically it's a closure, an ending, and a release for full moons. But the new moons, it's like, oh no, this is new, something different. Right. And we're going to see the sign that it's in, and then we will talk about it. We'll talk about that. And that's not all. That's not all. If you use the powers of the planets, the powers of the universe, if you pay attention to this cosmic, to this divine sacred language, you can understand the cycles and the timing. You can see the the beautiful order within the chaos, right? You can see it literally because you understand, oh my God, like these things mean something. And if I pay attention, I can recognize how this shows up in my life. And I'm going to pick a really simple example. This is a pen, right? It's not about the pen itself, like the brand or anything, or that it's a, one of those easy flow liquid ink type of pens. It's not about that. It's the fact that what do you do with a pen? What do you do with a pen? Yeah, I scratch my back with it sometimes, but normally, what was it designed to do? Right? That's like a really easy answer, isn't it? But do you know that there's a planet and an astrology sign that when you see a pen or information, the fact that I'm maybe writing a diary even, right? Or just keeping track of something. That's what a diary is, keeping track of my life, what I'm going through, my events, my feelings, my thoughts, putting my thoughts on paper, keeping track. That's a planet and a sign. Isn't that insane? Like something so simple, so basic. It's a planet and a sign. Anybody know the answer? All right. Hopefully I'll remember to give the answer at the end of the video. In the meantime, I don't know, every once in a while I decide to throw out some little quirky quiz. That should be one you can Google easy enough. And hopefully you don't have to Google it. That would be great. And if you do, that's okay too. The point is you're engaged and you're thirsty for that knowledge. Like, oh, there's some sacred language going on. I want to know this language. You sure do, because it lets you see the patterns, the life cycles. You know how you know when spring, summer, winter, and fall is coming? Right. The planets and all that, it's the astrology weather. You can see those cycles. And so when you know astrology, then you understand what cycle you're in. And so getting back to the whole thing about the new moon, a cycle of beginning, a cycle of beginning. And because of the sign that it's going to be in, and I'm going to talk about it, we're going to know what to focus on. And that's actually one of the keywords for the sign that this new moon is in. This new moon is in Sagittarius. The word focus is absolutely a Sagittarius keyword. When you think Sagittarius, think of the horse, It's got the blinders on. And so it can only look straight ahead because it's got the blinders on, the racing horse. It can't look left. I mean, it can look left or right, but it can't see anything but what's ahead. So almost like a tunnel vision thing where it's just what's directly in front of me. And there's no peripheral vision. And so I don't have any options other than what's in front of me. And I stay zeroed in. Think of the rider on horseback who is such a great marksman, Sagittarius. They are on the horse full gallop, right? And able to grab the arrow with the bow, pull it back, let it go, and hit a moving object while they're moving. Holy shit. Talk about expert marksmanship. That's amazing. I can only imagine. In my dreams, right? Only imagine. So this is all Sagittarius, but Sagittarius is so much more. Some of those definitions and meanings are very basic, and some of them are old, right? Because we don't live that way anymore. We're not on horseback and hunting for our food with a bow and arrow, or trying to harm or defend ourselves against the enemy, who might also be on horseback or on a moving around, and we're trying to shoot them, right? So let's talk about this, because new moons, other than being a beginning, these are your intention setting times. This is when we set intentions. Yeah. You know how you'll be like, or you'll hear, oh, you can manifest things, and like, yeah, just you got to focus on it. You got to talk about it. You got to write about it. You got to visualize it. You got to feel it. Well, there's also the added help that we get by knowing when there is a prime time, a magic time to set our intentions. So let's get into the chart and find out when this will all be. So we've got our chart, and I got some marks already on it because I was checking it out ahead of time. And here's something mystical, magical. Sagittarius new moon on December 12th. So 12/12. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be lots of videos, the 12/12 videos up, about, what this kind of energy setup has in store for us. I will say right here that being in Sagittarius can be the prophet and the sage, someone who gets information, gets downloads for sure, has visions, can see into the future, because it's Jupiter and it's connected to the cosmos. It's connected to the other planets, right? It goes big, it's expansive. And so it's kind of like all encompassing. I think of Jupiter as kind of like the umbrella over all of us. And we've got Taffy. I say Jupiter. Here comes Taffy. Oh, careful now. I need you to kind of get comfy and find a place that's good. That'll work. So let's go look at the new moon. Oh, wait. Before we go further, the hours of power. This is important. So the time of the new moon, the time is 5:32 p.m. Central Time Zone, because that's where I live. Adjust for the time zone you live in. 5:32 p.m. That is the hour of power. But the rules or the recommendation is that when you're setting your intentions, whether it's on paper or having some sort of a prayer ceremony or meditation, whatever it is that you do, light candles, whatever you do, that whatever works for you, it's the 8 hours before. That's just like the general rule, okay? That you want to do this the 8 hours before, because that is the building phase of the new moon, okay? Not after, before. Now, where's it happening? There it is. Bam. Saggy. You see it? Yeah, we're going left-handed because Taffy is here, and we'll just use the left hand and see how that works. That worked out okay. 20 degrees. There it is. There it is. And you see, I've got a lot of lines drawn because that means that there's quite a few things aspecting, meaning they match the degrees or they're close enough to be having conversations. And I believe this is actually 21 degrees. We're going to check the minutes real quick. I'm moving my lines out of the way. Yeah, we're checking the minutes. It's 20 degrees and 40 minutes. So this is a 21 degree new moon on December 12th, on 12/12, in the sign of Sagittarius. And The hours of power, 8 hours before, setting your intentions, your prayers. Sagittarius energy is like talking to the divine many times. We hear, yes, many times talking to the divine, whatever divine is for you, your higher self, even if you don't believe in in a creator or source. If you know if that's not your thing, well then speak to your higher self. There's that time where that veil is thin enough between the material and the tangible, right? The veil gets thin and the other realm steps in, the non-material, right? And and there's a connection that's made. So the link is stronger during those times, right? And in Saggy, we got to know like what the Sagittarius keywords are. Okay, so we're going to discuss that. The Sagittarius keywords I mentioned focus, right? So it's vision and focus, but being very one-eyed, like I'm so focused I only have one eye. You get it? And Saggy itself is the sign of 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 the holy ones, right? Gurus, of teachers, of becoming a teacher. Maybe you get a teacher, right? Are you going to go to school and get a teacher? Is there some way you're going to become the teacher? Sagittarius energy is the one where I have something to share. I have something to preach about. So it's preachers, people of the cloth, preachers, teachers. Yep. Religion and spirituality are also Sagittarius. It is wisdom, truth, and freedom. And it's looking into the future and understanding and figuring out societies, but culture energy. And culture energy, when I say that, I mean it's experiencing, going on the journey and experiencing. It is emerging myself into other cultures and the way that they live because we're seeking understanding. There may be things about myself within my own culture, my own family, where there are certain traditions or beliefs that don't work for me, that don't jive with me, that don't resonate with me, that never did. But when I seek out when I go from outside my comfort zone, which is Sagittarius, it says, let's take an adventure. Sagittarius is like, let's go to the moon. Literally, let's get in the rocket and go to the moon. It is like, I am willing to travel and I'm so willing to travel. We can bust off this rock and maybe go find a new rock to live on or to at least explore, right? And that's Saggy. It's got a lot of confidence, right? You got to have a lot of confidence to do something like that. You got to have that that gumption where I know I'm going where no man has gone before, or I know I'm going at least where I have never gone before, and it's okay. I know the universe has my back. I know it's going to be different. I know I'm going to foreign places. That's Sagittarius, foreign places. I got Taffy literally rubbing against the back of the laptop, which is the camera. And so just bear with me. She's some days, some days to the moon, Taffy, to the moon. You ever hear that? To the moon, Taffy. So Saggy says, well, it's fiery. It's very fiery, right? And it is just like it has to bust out in some way. And that's why I talked about like the rocket, fire and just taking off. And we kind of have that energy with us because Mars is here as well. And that is our physical body. And Mars gets fired up when it's in Sag. And I will say that Mars can represent people who carry weapons. So we can see it as the Marines. We can see it as whether it's the armed forces or just like your local police department type of thing. But people in general who, knives are connected with Mars energy, people who use knives. So chefs, even like in the kitchen, but definitely like a military tone. And Mars is very impatient. And so we all have to be very cautious. We have to be cautious because our Mars energy being very impatient and likely even more impatient, so it becomes irritable. Mars always feels like everybody is moving too slow. Mars always feels because it's like in a race with itself. Like it's got to be first. It wants to be first. It wants to be the leader of the pack. It truly wants to lead, but sometimes it doesn't understand that it's racing itself and it's racing others And that racing urge is so that it can be in front, but be in front not to win, but to be in front to lead. There's a difference, right? Oh, a big, big difference. Being in front to lead, you're doing something with a purpose, a deeply meaningful purpose. And that's the difference. So, what are you going to wish for? What are you going to pray for? What are your intentions going to be about? The Sagittarius keywords. Sagittarius is understanding. It is understanding because when it seeks and it searches that knowledge, it wants to gain worldly wisdom. It's the traveler. So sometimes we actually get on the plane and we travel with Sagittarius energy. Are you planning a vacation? Do you want to go on a vacation? I will say that when you're focused on Sagittarius for setting intentions, think about your future. What do you need for your future? And it should be associated with your long term financial security, your long term goals, something you're building for the long term, something you build not only just for the it's when I say long term, there's two different ways you can look at that. That means, oh, that's my 30-year out goal. We could take it that way. There's another way. Something that you're going to build that will last beyond even your own lifetime. That's what I mean by think about the future, think long term, that as well. And we're going to use astrology to specify this because we're going to look at Mercury, our mind. You see where Mercury is? It's in Capricorn. Capricorn. Now, you saw the video already for this week, I'm sure. Or maybe you didn't see it yet for December 11th, Monday, the December 11th, the week of video. But on that video, I mentioned Mercury because it is on this day. This Mercury is standing still. You see the Mercury at 8 degrees and 28 minutes? And it's the colors, the numbers are in black, right? It's about to go retrograde. Yeah, it's going to start its retrograde. Okay. 828. It actually, I believe that's the number, the magic number. 829, 1 minute away. It's 1 minute away in a minute. So it's on this day later in the day. It hits 829 and these numbers turn red and it starts to go backwards. This is your long-term goals. What are you building that you want to last a long time? Capricorn energy. Okay. This can literally be your career because many of us, our career is how we can establish that thing that we want, that material, tangible, long term security. So for some folks, it could be like, I need the job to get the home, I need the job to get the car. Does a car create our security? Secure, when we think secure, right? And we think material, right? We think, it's tangible because it's Capricorn. It's hard. It's something I can pick up, but maybe it's something I can't pick up. So it can literally be a house, right? It can be a building. We think of construction even, right? Because it's building something, but it's usually something that has to do with society. So we think of like the post office, the government buildings, right? Yeah. Well, Mercury's there. So you're not going to be wishing for a new post office, right? But Mercury's there. Your mind is there. So that gives us a clue as to what we're focused on. Long term, something that's tangible, material, maybe your career, your vocation, maybe saying, hey, I'm going to go for that raise. So I'm going to like go the extra mile and do whatever to get this higher up position that of course then brings the more money. And then I can get, kind of create this long-term thing that I want, whatever that is for you. Capricorn is earth energy, earth energy. This is also boss energy. It's the rules, it's the responsibilities, the structure, the discipline. That's Capricorn. There's no shortcuts. You got to put in the work with Cappy. You got to put in the work. If you cheat, if you somehow get ahead, if you climb that ladder, Capricorn, climbing the ladder. If you climb that ladder, stepping on the back and the head and the neck of somebody else, you're going to get thrown back down to the bottom rung. Might not be right away, but there will be a day of reckoning. That's Capricorn energy. Okay. Because Saturn is the ruler. Saturn is the teacher. Saturn says, you didn't follow the rules. Always think Simon Says when you think Saturn. I kind of like saying that because everyone puts Saturn as like this domineering energy where you didn't listen to me and I'm going to, I'm going to punish you, right? If we're okay with understanding that we just got to follow the rules, because when we do that, Saturn will reward us. Saturn is slow. So, Mercury being here, Mercury is also transportation, it's your mind. But Capricorn and Saturn, they organize things. They say, I now see and understand my mind. I understand the steps I have to set up, the steps I have to take to reach my long term goals. Have you ever been like that? Where you're like, God, I got this great goal. But you never like the I'm right here and now, and how do I get to there was like all gray and mush, and I had no idea how I could ever even go. I didn't know what step 1, 2, 3, or 4 was, let alone step 25, you know? And so Mercury kind of gives us that, because it'll be standing still. So pay attention on this day when Mercury stands still. Is it a green light to make that decision, to make that choice? And yet, yeah, this is it. No, it's not. But we're taking in information. Remember, I began the video talking about what is this? This is the scribe. It collects information and it tracks it, it writes it down. I'm gathering data right now. I'm gathering the details. That's Mercury. Okay. So, because it goes backwards, right? We have to understand another piece about the Saggy energy. It's flexibility. It's a mutable sign. So, what does that mean? It means that that's going to be likely one of the intentions that would be really and smart to set down. Yes, I have the skull. These are the things that I'm setting forth for my future. These are what I want to manifest in my life. However, one of those intentions should also be, I realize that I am like the balloon in the sky. And depending upon how that wind blows, I might get thrown off my path. It's a really good possibility. But if I get thrown off my path, I'll be flexible. It won't break me. And I'll have to make adjustments to get back on course again. You see how that works? Isn't that amazing? It's just amazing. It's flexibility. Sagittarius is it's mutable. It's mutable. Even though it's got its eye on the prize, it's mutable energy, mutable fire. So it can switch directions. You follow? And being able to pivot and switch, I think, is super vital to survival. Super vital. Okay. So the new moon intention is maybe going back to school, maybe becoming the teacher, possibly doing workshops, going online, attending workshops, religion and spirituality, and some wisdom there, possibly, right? Maybe getting those messages and the downloads. Okay. Now, I have a few other things on the chart real quickly here that I have pointed out. And at this part of the video, we're seeing that Venus is still in Scorpio, and she's going to be there for this. So what we value is always part of what we want to set the intentions on, whether we're aware of it or not, like conscious wise. Venus is our values, our desires. She just is. She's what we want. She's our creature comforts. And when we think about values, Venus in Scorpio is an emphasis on shared values, shared resources, shared natural resources. This land is my land. This land is your land. No, oh, hell, no, it's not. That whole thing. There's a part about all of that just, I'm kind of like the indigenous peoples, where how can you own the earth? How can you own the earth? How arrogant you think you can own the planet, right? Yeah. How can you claim a land as your land, right? Bottom line is, we're all on this damn thing together, and we have to kind of share it. And that's Scorpio energy, shared resources. Like, we're all here. So all the resources of the earth, like, it's for all of us. We're all here. And I know that some people might not like the sound of that. Some people might be like, screw that. This is my house. This is my land. I pay taxes on it. Damn it. I get it. I get it. But some folks are paying the ultimate price and dying, killing others for it. And the whole Sagittarius season, the higher moral ground. I keep hearing it. It's like when I keep getting information, I call it like a haunting, like it doesn't leave me alone. And so the sooner I talk about it and share it, the better. Otherwise, it just It's like a broken record in my head. That's why I say a haunting. It's like, leave me alone already. The higher moral ground with Sagittarius. Think about the Christmas music. I know this video is getting long, but I know for myself, I love Christmas music, love Christmas time, love Christmas movies. And many times, and this isn't taking anything away from any people, any performers who have created music or movies or whatever, but particularly music. There's something about that music and the movies from like the World War II era, between World War One, World War II. And it could be like the worst recording, right? Because of the equipment and technology. Like we didn't have all the really whatever stuff to make it sound like just so perfect. But there is something in that music. There is something so alive, so alive. Like the life force just and the joy, right? Oozed when these people were singing about it and talking about having, just the giving and the goodness at that time of the year. It's like these people had a higher moral ground than we do today. And and I don't mean specifically the performers, not to be confused, but those generations that lived through those times. It's like they truly sacrificed. They truly sacrificed. And I say this because I know all around the world people are really truly sacrificing, but here in the States, I feel like sometimes we forget because we don't normally have to defend the land that we literally live on. We don't have to necessarily defend our shore. Sure, we have stations there, right? We've got the military, the army, the navy, the air force. We've got that, but it's like when there are these major battles, like literally hand-to-hand combat type of shit. Not that anybody's doing that anymore, but although, yeah, January 6th became that. But that, other than that, when was the last time that this country had that? The Civil War, right? Yeah. And so it's almost like we take for granted our the country, the land, and our unity. And it's almost as though we have forgotten how bad shit could possibly be, like we've been desensitized. And so it's almost like I keep hearing we have to remember, we have to focus on, I guess, the higher moral ground. So for whatever that means for you in your life in whatever way, sometimes I love the simplicity of those old black and white movies because there was something, I don't want to say more pure, but I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes I just don't have words to explain what I feel. And the higher moral ground and the connection to life and the value of life, not to say that there wasn't atrocities, right? And like racism wasn't alive and well. For sure, absolutely was. But it's like there's just something about the the element of change, you know, and the change of our values and the disruption in the change of our values, where we're being kind of not just asked, but almost forced to release our old values, right? Uranus and Taurus. And so having Venus and Scorpio, and it's focused on shared values. When we think about that, we have to really have to like have a conversation with ourselves and say, how important are the material and the tangible things in my life? What do I need as opposed to what do I want? And where do we draw the line when it comes to greed? Because sometimes the line seems to get moved. It gets pushed back further and further and further sometimes. And we have to almost take stock. We have to almost kind of snap ourselves out of it and have like an adjustment, self-adjust ourselves. And maybe that's what we need, that adjustment to the holding the higher moral ground and being closer to being more human, as opposed to going through like being dehumanized and desensitized and no empathy and no feeling. So for the Sagittarius new moon, the energies that will square are in red. And so, of course, Virgo and Pisces angle up and square. And I've got a red line drawn to Neptune because Neptune is at 2454. So the sun and the moon at 21 degrees that day, that will start to square Neptune. Now remember, the sun is your energy, like literally your gas tank. It's your battery, right? So when the sun squares it, and this won't be for long, okay? So don't get all bent out of shape. You'll unless you're extremely sensitive, you won't feel the drain for more than a few days, right? But if you're extremely sensitive, you might feel it a little bit longer. So to get the orb going here, because it's 21 degrees on the new moon, the orb, we're going to set it at 19 degrees of Sagittarius. Between 19 degrees of Saggy and 23 degrees of Sagittarius for the new moon, if you have something at those points. And that would be a house cusp line, a planet, that could be anything, right? It could be an asteroid, anything. If you've got a chart like mine, there could definitely be something there because I have so many objects on my charts, okay? Now, as far as the date, December 12th, that is the date, and the time is 5:32 p.m. And the days for feeling a drain, on the day of the new moon, you shouldn't feel anything because we're like four degrees away, but you might, right? But as the sun moves 1 degree a day, the next day it's at 21, 22 degrees, you will feel the drain because it'll be angling this Neptune down here closely. Neptune's 2454, 25 degrees. So you see that? It'll be angling it. It's called a square. And a square is stress and tension. Okay. And the stress and tension with the sun means there might be a drain on the energy because Neptune brings on the dreams and the sleep and illusions and delusions even. And things might seem confusing and blurry and fuzzy, or you might be walking around kind of in a, like you're sleepwalking type of thing, or you just, sometimes you just feel like weird. Neptune usually has a hand in it. Okay. Neptune is usually involved in some way in that. And if you have anything in Virgo, we don't by transit. There's nothing at 20, 21, 22, 23, or 24. Nothing by transit, but in your chart, you may have something between 19 and 23 degrees in Virgo. And if you do, then the new moon is squaring it. The sun and the moon are sending square energy, which is stress and tension to your Virgo energy, which is domestic part of life. So the things that you do in the home, right? Just the daily routines, right? Can be things that you do at work. It is domestic, but it's like day-to-day routines, okay? So projects, tasks, the to-do lists. If you normally get up in the morning and do like you have like a set routine, you might have to switch things up because there's a square. The sun and the moon angle it in some way. Remember, Virgo is pets, domestic pets as well. So it might be something little, I don't know. Someone might have left you a couple of gifts on the floor in a spot that you didn't expect it, or whatever. There might be a little bit of that goes on. If you got cats and dogs, you all know what I'm talking about. And that about wraps it up. Set your new moon intentions. Remember the sign of Sagittarius. The sign of Sagittarius between 19 to 23 degrees in your chart. If you don't have your chart, what the heck are you waiting for? Comment to me below. I'll help you out in any way I can. And if you are still with me, if you're still here, I always appreciate your time. I will see you in the next one. Take care. So below the video, I'll have all the degrees for those of you who like to pay attention to the degrees in your chart. Again, if you don't know and you want to know, just comment below.